Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to the library. Today we are going to talk about books that are kind of BookTube darlings that you hear about all the time, books that I've now read, and I'm going to tell you whether I thought they lived up to the hype on BookTube, whether they were just sort of okay, or whether they really disappointed me and did not live up to the hype. So these are in no particular order, I'm just grabbing them out of a stack. So let's get started with our first one, which is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I hear about this book nonstop, and I would say that this book lives up to the hype. It was, I would say, a 4.5 star out of 5. It was not perfect by any means, but it is not what I expected. I expected just some sort of, I don't know, really sad, depressing book, but honestly, it was more uplifting, if anything, and some of the characters were amazing. Some of the children in this orphanage were wonderful. Also, the colors are so pretty. And when the back said it was 1984 meets the Umbrella Academy with a pinch of Douglas Adams thrown in, and a couple things in it also reminded me of Harry Potter. I love all of those things, so this actually really did live up to the hype. I'm not going to explain to you what every book is about because that would take way too long, but I do think that this one definitely lives up to the hype. The next one in the stack is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. So I did read the entire Grisha trilogy. I honestly don't know why, because I didn't really like the first one. So why I continued on, I don't know. But I did power through the whole trilogy. It was not good. It was really, I think it is definitely like an older kind of YA. I don't know if maybe it is older. Oh yeah, 2012. So this was definitely back when like Hunger Games was a thing. It's very Hunger Gamesy is kind of the vibe I get from it. I mean, it's not dystopian or anything, but just the writing style and the romance in it, it was all so cheesy. So maybe if I were a lot younger, I'm sure if I were a teenager, maybe this would have been enjoyable, but trying to read it now in my 30s, it was not for me. So I did read this whole trilogy, but I DNF'd Six of Crows. I honestly only continued reading this one so that I could read this because everybody said it would help to understand Six of Crows. And everybody talks about Six of Crows. You know, we know it's one of the most popular books on all of BookTube. It was supposed to be a heist story with 6 characters, and it's all about the characters, but I just don't care about the characters. So when it's a character-driven story, but you don't like any of them, that's kind of a problem. So I do not think that these books lived up to the hype, and I wish I had not wasted my time reading the Shadow and Bone trilogy. The next book I see in the stack over here this is actually the third one in the series, but I've loaned my first 2 copies to my mom. But this is the Nevermoor series by Jessica Townsend. The first one is Nevermoor, The Trials of Morgan Crow. The second one is Wondersmith, The Calling of Morgan Crow. And this is the third one, Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morgan Crow. Now the fourth one comes out this October. I think it's called Silverborn, something about silver, The Mystery of Morgan Crow. But anyway, I hear about these books a lot. They are middle grade, and even readers that I've seen on BookTube who don't like middle grade love these books. I totally agree. This possibly even exceeded the hype. This is one of my all-time favorite series ever, like not even just middle grade. This is Harry Potter level quality. This is amazing. The world building is wonderful. The writing is very whimsical and fun. It's funny. The villain is interesting. It's not just your typical, oh, he's evil and let's fight against him. There's a little bit more going on with the main character even possibly teaming up with the villain. So I absolutely loved this, and I think it definitely lives up to the hype. I'm going to reread this series for years to come and read it to my child, and it is like Harry Potter level quality. So yes, this whole series lives up to the hype. The next book I see in my stack is Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. When this book came out, it was all YouTube talked about. I just saw a video today, How to Train Your Gavin. He talked about this book, literally, like in a video he made yesterday. And he actually thought it lived up to the hype, relatively so. So I thought this book was very mediocre. I honestly didn't care one way or the other. I did continue reading it. I didn't DNF it, so at least that says something. So it's probably like a 2.5 or 3 star read. I usually DNF it if it's 1 or 2 stars, even sometimes 3. But it was very long, and it jumps around in time a lot. It covers a large period of time. And I didn't really care about the characters or honestly even the plot. So maybe it just wasn't a book for me, but it clearly is a book for other people because they really enjoyed it. But to me, it was very mediocre and did not live up to the hype. The next one I see, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Let's talk about this whole series. So we know it's called the ACOTAR series. Everybody on BookTube talks about it. Everybody's read it. I discovered this a couple years ago, right when I first started BookTube, or right when I first started watching BookTube videos, and I read it right away. I jumped on the bandwagon with a bunch of teachers at my school who were all reading it. I liked the first one because it's not what I expected. The first half was kind of like, oh, okay, she's falling in love with this random guy. He's kind of like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and she has to live with him and whatever, and I didn't really care. But then when kind of the bad boy character came into it, then I cared a lot more. So I did enjoy this first one. Then I read the second one, and I know the second one is, people say it's by far the best and it's wonderful, and I thought it was good, but I don't know if that one lives up to the hype. I did really enjoy book 2. Book 3 was terrible. I hated book 3. I thought it was very poorly written. It was boring, honestly, for somebody that's supposed to be, you know, in the middle of a war. The main character did really nothing interesting. And I don't know, the main character gets a little bit too much power, and I just really didn't care about the romance anymore at that point, because I think the main romance is kind of at the end of this book and then in the second book. But by the time they're together in the third one, I guess I just don't really care anymore. So, and then I read the little novella, Court of Frost and Starlight, and it's just stupid. I mean, literally there's a snowball fight and they go Christmas shopping, and that's it. It's like a Christmas story. So I've kind of given up on Sarah J. Maas entirely, because I also DNF'd. I guess I should talk about this in another video, but I did DNF House of Earth and Blood, so I think I'm done with Sarah J. Maas. So this book sort of lived up to the hype. It was good, but I don't know that it was spectacular. Maybe like 4 stars. So the next book we have is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. I hear a lot of people talk about this book, and it's very lyrical, beautiful writing, but it's boring. Like, for somebody who's supposed to go to other worlds, the main character just doesn't really do very much. I just thought it would be way more interesting if you could travel to different worlds, but you don't really even get to see that. So I don't know, the atmosphere was kind of cool, the writing was okay. I did obviously finish it. It was very 3-star to me. I don't understand the hype, and I know that people say The Night Circus is way better, not The Night Circus, what's it called? The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern is supposed to be this, but better. So I am gonna give that book a chance, because I don't mind lyrical writing as long as something is actually happening in the book, and this one just didn't have that for me. It also could be that I read this right after I had the baby. It was the first book I read, and it took me like 3 months. So I'm sure that made it seem like it was slower moving because of it taking me 3 months. So that could have been the problem, but I don't think it lived up to the hype. Next, we have a couple books by Victoria Schwab. Let's do her because everybody loves Victoria Schwab on BookTube. So first, I read A Darker Shade of Magic. It's quite short, and I loved this book. I thought this book actually surpassed the hype that I'd heard on BookTube. I thought this was a 5-star read. This might be one of my favorite reads, definitely of last year, but possibly ever. I would definitely go back and read this, and the hope for the rest of the series was tremendous, because I could see where it opened up this whole world. I could see where I thought the plot was going, and I loved it. Then, of course, we know what happened. Books 2 and 3 were not good. Book 2 was terrible. It was the biggest letdown, I think, of a sequel I have ever had in my entire life. And book 3 was very mediocre. So I would only ever read book 1 again. I would only recommend anybody read book 1. You can get a full story just by reading book 1, and please do not continue. But so the rest of the series, terrible, did not live up to the hype. This book surpassed the hype, so that's kind of interesting. On a more positive note, let's do our other V.E. Schwab series, which is The Vicious and Vengeful Duology, which apparently is only going to be 2 books, I've discovered. But this book, I was a little hesitant just because of my mixed reaction to the whole Shades of Magic trilogy. Let's stop and smell it. Doesn't smell great, but it's fine. So this book lived up to the hype and surpassed it. I hear everyone talking about how wonderful it is. I just did not expect it to be this. It is so carefully crafted. Victoria Schwab is a master storyteller, is all I can say. She has a gift with figuring out how to weave all the story threads together in a really unique way. The time jumps in this were perfect. I actually loved them. The way it weaved everything together and the jumps between characters. The chapters are super short, which actually worked really, really well. It reminded me of The Boys. Maybe not quite as dark, but it definitely had some dark moments in it. But I love the TV series The Boys, about superheroes and villains and things. And I did not think that the sequel, Vengeful, could live up to Vicious, but it did. I think I still like Vicious better, but Vengeful was also amazing. But you could read this book and still get a full story. It honestly did not even need a sequel. This is a whole story in itself. But then that's why I didn't think it needed one. I was so skeptical after the Shades of Magic fiasco. I didn't think that, a sequel could live up to this book, but it did. So I highly recommend Vicious. It was absolutely amazing. So we have 4 books to go. Next is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is a trilogy, a young adult, dystopian, sci-fi, and everyone loves Scythe. They always talk about it. Everybody who's read it on BookTube, I see give it a positive review. I DNF'd it. I think I made it a third of the way, and even though I thought the premise was interesting, I just didn't care. I didn't care about anything happening. I just thought it was all dark for kind of the sake of being dark, I guess, if that makes any sense. And yeah, I don't really have much to say about it. It wasn't really very good. 3 books to go. The Diviners by Liv Bray. I've not read the rest of the series, so I can't talk about anything except for the first book, but there are 4 books in this series, and when I first started BookTube, one of my favorite booktubers, this was one of her favorite books, so that was Reagan over at Peruse Project. I discovered her channel as one of the first BookTube channels I ever watched, and she always talked about the Diviners, and other booktubers I've seen since have always really talked highly about this book, and I thought it was good. I don't think it was 5 stars, maybe 3.5, 4, but the writing surprised me because young adult writing is not always the best. But this book is young adult. We have it listed as horror in our library, but I would say it's definitely, it's historical in the sense that, it's set in the 20s in New York, the Roaring 20s, which is a fun setting. But it's also kind of a mystery. I would say it's more mystery. I mean, there's definitely some scary elements too, because there's like a, ancient evil serial killer that's come back. So that's, I guess the scary part, but it is chunky, but it does move along pretty quickly. I really enjoyed the characters. I liked the writing style. I like how everything came together. Like I said, just the descriptions of like the setting, and it really makes you feel like you're in the 20s. The magical element was nice. I didn't feel like I felt like I could really suspend my disbelief to believe it. So I would continue this series. I don't think it was wonderful by any means, so maybe it didn't quite live up to the hype, but it was still really good. 2 books to go. Sinless Sins by Josiah Bancroft. This is the first of the Books of Babel series. There are 4 of them now. The series is finished. I've not read any of the other ones, although I do plan on trying the second one to see if it gets any better. The first part of this book I thought was pretty interesting, maybe like the first third. I thought I was going to really enjoy it. Then it got weird, is all I can say. This book is way weirder than I expected. It definitely took a darker turn than I thought. I did not expect some of the kind of gruesome elements of it to come into play. And I know I've said this in a video before, but I thought the ending wrapped up way too neatly. To be a tower that is this massive where you can't even find your loved ones, and that's the whole plot of the book, is that he's lost his wife and can't find her, and that's like the whole series is him trying to find her in this massive tower that has different levels, that's really, really intricate, and like ancient and mysterious, and nobody even knows who built it. But the fact that he keeps running into the same people in the tower, and all the story threads come together, that seems just unbelievable. So the logic of this book, that part didn't make any sense to me. I also didn't care about some of the levels that he goes to. I thought it would be more, I don't know, I thought each one would be more about the different, like he would go to different levels and fun things would happen, or interesting things would happen there, but I don't know. Instead, he really gets sucked into the tower, and I think I've said this in a video before, that he it becomes like at the beginning he's like this naive bumbling dude who's like, oh yes, I'll just read a guidebook and learn all about the tower, but then by the end somehow he's like an expert and he's like seasoned and he's like, oh, I can trick people now and I know exactly what I'm doing, and you're just like, I don't think he could have that kind of character development in this short of a book. And I could see if that happened in book 2 or 3, but it happens too quickly. So I had some issues with it. I'd say it was very 3-star, and I'm gonna try the second one to see if it gets any better. If I don't like the second one any better, I'm DNFing the series. Now for our very last book. I don't know why I saved the worst one till last, but this was my most disappointing book of probably like the last, possibly my entire life, because I looked forward to a new era of vampires with Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff, and I thought that this was just going to be the most fantastic thing since Anne Rice, right? Since Interview with the Vampire. That's what I wanted. This is not it. This is a young adult book marketed as adult, but it's truly not. It is so cheesy and so ridiculous. It's like if you went into Hot Topic. That's what this book is. This is like Vampires, like Hot Topic edition or something. Anyway, I DNF'd it at like 150 pages in. It was so silly, and almost everyone on BookTube loves it. I don't understand. I just don't get it. I think if I was a teenager, I would maybe have enjoyed it. It's also massively long. I know I've read this part before, but just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about with the level of cheesiness, I'm going to read you just the little few pages at the beginning that's the vow, or sorry, a few lines here. This is the vow that all of these characters have to take. They're in this organization. So it says, inside of God and his 7 martyrs, I do here vow, let the dark know my name and despair. So long as it burns, I am the flame. So long as it bleeds, I am the blade. So long as it sins, I am the saint, and I am silver. Because they're called the Silver Saints or something. That is what this whole book is. If you like that, fine. If you think that that is silly and ridiculous, then you would probably agree with me. So I am gonna reread this because I think it would be funny. I might do a vlog where I'm like laughing at some of the pages. I'm gonna not take this book seriously. And then I think I could actually read it just for entertainment. So this obviously did not live up to the hype, and this was one of the most disappointing books of my entire life. So those are some books that I have read that BookTube loves. As you can see, some of them I really thought lived up to the hype. Some of them were decent, but maybe not quite as good as BookTube led me to believe. And then some of them were really, really sadly disappointing. I've actually got quite a few more that I'd like to talk about in another video, so I may do a part 2 of this. But let me know if you guys have ever been disappointed in a book that you hear so much about on BookTube and then it's just not that good. So I'll talk to you guys again soon and have a good day. Bye.